'Cause I'm back. I'm back. I'm back and it's Monday. It's July 28th. It's 2025. Oh, yeah. All right. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the daily happenings in the D.C. swamp with our federal government and politicians. This is Spathon, and a federal judge blocked the Trump administration's attempt to defund Planned Parenthood. Over the weekend, the U.S. and the EU, they reached what might be the largest trade deal in history, thanks to President Trump and his administration. As well as Republicans, they keep touting trade wins, while Democrats keep demanding Epstein files. President Trump, he spoke with the prime ministers of Cambodia and Thailand and was able to secure a ceasefire and a peace deal between the two countries. As Trump's been doing that time and time again, man, India and Pakistan, as well as Iran and Israel, and I'm sure there's others that I'm not thinking of at the moment. But anyway, also the governor of Idaho just banned all cell phones in classrooms, as well as candy and sugar drinks from all SNAP benefits. So there is a lot happening, and we'll just get into it right now. So this is from the White House. This happened over the weekend. Today, President Trump secured a huge, powerful trade deal between the U.S. and the EU. The EU will invest $600 billion into the U.S., Also, they're going to purchase $750 billion in American energy. Hopefully that's surplus energy, because I don't want our electric bills to go up because Europe is demanding electricity. Or not electricity, obviously. I mean, they're not going to transmit electricity across the Atlantic, but our coal, our oil, our natural gas, all that good stuff. Hopefully that's not going to drive up energy costs, which I'm sure it won't. Drill, baby, drill. I mean, we were operating out of surplus during Trump's first term. So anyway, also, markets are going to be opened to the U.S. from the EU. Historic trade deal, shaking hands, making things happen. The art of the deal, Trump doing what he does best. Of course, as usual, as always. So this one from Rapid Response 47, Professor David Collins. The U.S. and EU trade deal is absolutely a victory on behalf of the Trump administration. This actually is on CNN of all places. So, let me adjust that volume. Holy cow, I'm going to blow out some eardrums. All right, here we go. Let's go with this.
Is this a fantastic deal then struck by Donald Trump and just terrible negotiation on the part of the EU? I mean, how do you...
I think that's an accurate assessment. Obviously, it's better than not having any deal at all at 30% or something, but this is really a wasted opportunity, I think, for the EU, and absolutely a victory on behalf of the Trump administration.
Oh my God, dude. They just cannot look at this in any positive way at all, can they? All right, so that was that, and there's only one more thing I believe that I have with regard to the trade deal. So Trump's done it. It's a complete win so far, says Megyn Kelly on the landmark EU trade deal. So V.D. Hansen, Victor Davis Hansen, he's senior fellow of the Hoover Institution. He's on Fox News a lot. Classics, military history. It's a pretty brilliant mind, man, if you listen to him. He's the kind of guy you could listen to for like 3 straight hours and just come out of that just knowing that you just learned a whole lot, even if you can't tap into it immediately. So anyway, it is for 5 years. I've farmed full-time. I grew raisins, and the EU subsidized and dumped their raisins, and it destroyed the raisin market in the 1980s. Maybe that's why they brought out the whole California raisins thing. That happened during the 1980s. I wonder if that's somehow correlated with the whole like raisin apocalypse of the 1980s. But anyway, let's listen to this with Megyn Kelly.
It was one-sided. Our so-called friends who we got such a hard time for not being nice to, were taking advantage of us, Victor. And now Trump's done it. He's taking in tariff income. He's getting them to invest in the country, and our companies get to sell their goods over there. I mean, it's a complete win so far.
An epic win.
If I could just detour a bit,
Megan,
win of epic
for 5
years I farmed full-time, and I did it part-time here on my farm for 15 years. And I grew raisins, and the EU subsidized and dumped their raisins with a $500 subsidy a ton, and it destroyed the raisin market in the 1980s. And my point is that when Reagan officials, whom I liked, came out to explain, you know what they said to us? This is good for you, because this was the traditional economic
We're doing it for you.
That if they subsidize and we don't, then we're going to have kind of a Darwinian, only the strongest will survive, and that's good. And you'd say, well, you can't survive when they have a $500 dumping advantage. And then they'd say, well, they won't be able to sustain it. And they did sustain it.
And
then they'll say it's going to lower prices for Americans that if you get less, and it didn't. So we've been dealing with this economic orthodoxy for a long time, and what's missing is we don't really know what the profit margin was for the Japanese, the Chinese, the Europeans in this market. It could have been 20 or 30, but my point is that they apparently have calculated that as long as it's 15%, they're going to make plenty of money without having to raise prices and get in a trade war as the entry charge to get into this huge consumer market. And everybody said that's not true, but apparently they have made a calculated decision that they will make plenty of money, pay the tariff, and be here.
Yeah, you know, his whole raisin story, that kind of reminds me of the capitalism that Starbucks likes to employ when they move a Starbucks into either into a district inside a city or into a town where there is no Starbucks. But there's a mom and pop coffee shop, but they'll strategically open the Starbucks directly across the street from the coffee shop, even though they've got the entire town to open up a Starbucks in. But no, they're just going to target that exact spot. Why don't you just open up your Starbucks on the other side of town? You know, you're still gonna thrive over there. I mean, people from the other side of town, they'll still go over there because a lot of people like Starbucks. But no, they got to open it up right across the street from the mom and pop shop. And once they open it up, they gauge how much the coffee costs over at the mom and pop shop. It's like, I don't know, $5 a cup or whatever. So Starbucks, they'll lower all of their prices down below $5 to put them out of business because they've got tens of thousands of other Starbucks out there to subsidize that one single location. So they could eat the lower costs or they can eat the losses for a period of time until that business across the street goes out of business. And yeah, then once they're out of business, once they're out of the way, then they'll jack up their coffee prices back up to $10 or however much it costs a day. I don't know. I haven't been in a Starbucks in like 8 years, but anyway, so this is from Ed Markey, Democrat, blocked, and that's pertaining to a federal judge blocking Trump administration's efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. So he's obviously proud about that. There is no news story that he actually linked to that, but I'll see if I could bring something up to see which judge it might have been or which area it is. I'm sure it was probably in the 9th district. I mean, that's usually where a lot of these blocks tend to take place. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But anyway, so let's see. Federal judge. I'm sure it already autofilled. Yeah, it did. I like to look at the keyboard when I type. Let's see. I'd rather find an article here. Let's see. Wow, I got so many to choose from. I don't know. Should we do AP? I guess. Not a big fan of AP at all. But whatever. I'll read it regardless. A federal judge on Monday ruled Planned Parenthood clinics nationwide must continue to be reimbursed for Medicaid funding as the nation's largest abortion provider fights President Donald Trump's administration over efforts to defund the organization and its signature tax legislation. The new order replaces a previous edict handed down by U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani in Boston last week. Oh, okay, on the other side of the country. Talwani initially granted a preliminary injunction specifically blocking the government from cutting Medicaid payments to Planned Parenthood members that didn't provide abortion care or didn't meet a threshold of at least $800,000 in Medicaid reimbursements in a given year. Quote, patients are likely to suffer adverse health consequences where care is disrupted or unavailable, Talwani wrote in her Monday order. In particular, restricting members' abilities to provide healthcare services threatens an increase in unintended pregnancies and, no it doesn't, and attendant complications because of reduced access to effective contraceptives and an increase in undiagnosed and untreated STIs. Well, keep your legs closed, for starters. I mean, why the fuck's that so hard to do? If you're not ready to have kids, don't have sex. That's it. And do you want you want something else to be incentivized by not having sex? You get STDs. You can get AIDS. I mean, crap, what was the one? Syphilis. Syphilis is up, over the last 12, 15 years, syphilis is up over 1,000%. 1,000% over the last 10, 15 years. And I believe that stat actually, it actually pertains to newborns also. There's a massive increase in even newborns that are born with that, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but I think I'm right on that. Pretty sure I read that somewhere. But yeah, dude, just don't have sex, ladies. Just don't do it. You control sex. Men control the relationships. You control the sex, not him. You do. That's it. Game over. If you don't want to have a baby, then don't friggin' have sex. You know, there's plenty of ways to pleasure yourself, you know, right? There's all kinds of, you know what? I'm not even going to go there. Just, you can use your imagination. I mean, we're all adults here. At least I assume only adults are watching this. But anyway, I'll just try to keep it as G-rated as possible. I just think this is just all ridiculous because it's called abstinence. You know, it's a word that progressives and a lot of young folks have probably never even heard that word before. Like, what the hell is abstinence? What the fuck does that mean? A provision in Trump's tax bill instructed the federal government to end Medicaid payments for 1 year to abortion providers that receive more than $800,000 from Medicaid in 2023, even to those like Planned Parenthood that also offer medical services like contraception, pregnancy tests, STD testing. And so there you have it. So that's that. So they've blocked it, at least temporarily. Not sure if it's going to be appealed or if that might end up being a Supreme Court situation. I'm not so sure. I don't know, man. There's a lot of irons in the fire in the Trump administration, but I'm sure that's definitely one of the pressing ones because it's kind of expensive having to pay for all of that when it's 100% preventable. We're not talking a chronic condition that nobody chose to have. I mean, getting pregnant is something that's extremely avoidable. And how many different forms of birth control are we up to now? What is it, like 34 different forms of birth control? A box of condoms ain't that expensive. I know it's a lot more expensive than it was probably 10 years ago, but it ain't that expensive. All's I'm saying. And in fact, ladies, if you're gonna have sex with somebody, make the dude pay for the condoms. Make him pay for it. And believe me, it's not gonna be a damaged condom. It certainly won't be because if anything, guys are really trying not to get women pregnant these days because first off, they're not sure what kind of woman you really are. You could be a raging psychopath. And what is the number up to now? I think it's like 30% of women these days are on some sort of psychiatric medication. It's an alarming number. It's a crazy number. Yeah, a lot of guys aren't ready to be dads just yet. I mean, they definitely want to get married first because they want to know you a lot better. So, yeah, make him pay for the condom. Trust me, it's going to work. He's going to make damn sure that thing doesn't break. All right, so anyway, so Senator Alex Padilla, also a Democrat. I know that from that little logo there. That means Democrat. It means House Democrat, I think. Let me just double check. Or Senate. Uh-oh, I was wrong on that. I got the Democrat part right, but yeah, that's the Senate. Well, I guess what gave it away maybe was the fact that it says he's a senator. All right, so anyway, if you've built a life here, contributed to your community, and have no criminal record, you should have the chance to stay. Indiscriminate and cruel deportations and detentions aren't the answer. I'm fighting for a better path forward. Well, I mean, if you illegally enter the country, you are by definition a criminal. So if he's trying to suggest that what's the buzzword now, or what's the terminology that we're using today among the progressives, undocumented citizens, I think that's what they're dulling it all the way down to that point. All right, here, let me back up a little bit, try to get this thing all in screen, all 42 seconds worth. This ought to be fun. Let's see what he has to say.
My parents, Santos y Guadalupe Padilla, came from Mexico in the 1960s in search of a better life.
Legally, probably.
I know that California is stronger, not in spite of the immigrant population, but because of the immigrant population.
Oh, you hear that? You hear that, Americans in California? You don't matter. Only the immigrants matter. If you're a natural-born citizen in California, apparently you are not nearly as important as the immigrants.
No new bureaucracy, no new agency, just a simple date change to existing law to better reflect today's reality by creating a rolling 7-year eligibility cutoff date.
For what?
To qualify for protections. We can carve out a better path forward for hardworking long-term immigrants. As
Democrats always are, they're extremely vague. All we got was 7-year and the word path. Okay, dude. I'm assuming that he might be getting just a slight bit roasted in the comments, but I'll just take a quick look. Actually, I think I left one. Yeah, anyone who has illegally entered the country is a criminal. They violated federal law. It is what it is. I mean, I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. People who may not exactly be here completely legally if they came here, but I do agree that immigration absolutely should be a thing. It should be done carefully, and it should be done based on, let's say, merit. If there's a whole bunch of immigrants who are trying to come to the United States and they just happen to have the skill set that we need for certain industries that we're lacking employment in, yeah, let them in. That's the way it should be. Why do you hate Americans? Yeah, you know what? That's what I said. It's like, California, apparently you natural-born citizens out there, you don't matter at all to this guy. from America. Fuck you. And, of course, Doge AI. I guess I'll read it. Senator Padilla's better path is just amnesty dressed as compassion. The real issue, rewarding illegal entry undermines the rule of law. Trump's self-deportation app streamlines enforcement while offering merit-based re-entry. No chaos, just accountability. Plus, the Trump administration has also given them $1,000 to travel with. Plus, they're also paying for their entire way. And they're giving them $1,000 on top of it. Want to stay? Follow the legal process. Breaking immigration laws isn't a victimless act. It costs taxpayers $150 billion a year in healthcare, education, and public safety burdens. Not to mention, it also makes housing a lot more expensive because they got to live somewhere. And I know everybody's freaking out about the cost of housing, especially people who rent, which is a large swath of the country. And at this point, virtually all Gen Z and a sizable portion, probably more than half of millennials, I probably don't own homes or have a mortgage either. But anyway, enforcement isn't cruelty, it's restoring order. Prioritize those who respect the system, not those who skip the line. We already have a pathway to citizenship. Why do you act like we don't? What other laws can we ignore? Jose, slavery, child labor, drunk driving? The vast majority of American citizens want all illegals deported. Yeah, the vast majority. I think it was like 79% are heavily in support of illegal immigration, or heavily in support of deporting illegal immigrants. I misspoke there. So that's not what Americans voted for, Jose. Every Democrat trying to overthrow the will of the American people to protect illegals must be ousted, hopefully jailed. You stole an American slot when you ran for LA City Council when you were an illegal alien. You were nothing but a criminal. Ooh, he was an illegal alien? Or is? Is he really? I don't know, though. His whole thing about his parents came here in the 1960s from Mexico. I mean, maybe he was born before 1960. I don't know. All right, let's move on from that. Rep. Mike Herodopoulos. If no one is above the law, then let's prove it. President Obama should testify under oath about his role in Russiagate. If he's innocent, why hide? The American people deserve answers, as they do deserve answers.
As they said during the Trump trial, they said, let justice be done. No one's above the law. Well, here's their opportunity to experience the same opportunity. And so I think if I'm President Obama, if I was accused of this, I'd want to testify. Let's put him under oath and see what he says. If he's the magnanimous figure that the liberal press has always said, hey, let's let the conversation take place. And they're just trying to dismiss it out of hand. But Tulsi Gabbard has the evidence. She has, in some cases, could be the smoking gun. And I think this is why Congress needs to be aggressive about this. I hope that our committee chairman on oversight, Mr. Comer from Kentucky, will take the lead here. And if Pam Bondi is an excellent prosecutor, can piece this all together, clearly charges will be filed. And we have to go to a grand jury and let them make the decision. I just hope that grand jury is in Washington, D.C., because everybody knows the Washington, D.C. grand jury is a double standard grand jury. I hope they put it in middle America and let the facts stand on their own.
Oh, that's such a good point. That is absolutely such a good point. Yeah, D.C. is extremely heavily Democrat. Very, very heavily Democrat. I've mentioned it several times. It's 90% or even over 90% of the D.C. bureaucracy who works in D.C., who votes, because not all of them vote, but the ones who do vote, over 90% of them, they vote Democrat. So anyway, Senator John Cornyn, Texas Democrats are in such disarray that they're flying in New York Democrat Rep. Jeffries in a desperate attempt to thwart the Texas legislature's business. Newsflash, if you need a liberal New Yorker's advice on legislating in the Lone Star State, you've already failed. And that's in response to Scott Braddock. Amid redistricting battle, U.S. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries will visit the Texas Capitol in Austin on Wednesday, it appears, which I'm sure he will. All right, so this is from Rep. Anna Paulina Luna. Why is this child molester allowed to adopt a child? And she's posting to PA Attorney General Dave, let me just get his whole name here, Dave Sunday, Pennsylvania Attorney General. The fact that this man is exploiting a loophole allowing surrogacy adoption, we're talking about this man here, despite being a registered sex offender, is disgusting. This should be outlawed. Isn't it outlawed? So what, sex offenders are allowed to adopt children? Is that actually true? Like, is that seriously not illegal? I don't care who you are, what your race is, or your gender. If you're a registered sex offender, you should not be allowed near children, let alone adopt them. I know, right? I would have assumed that that already was the law. If that's not the law, that is brutally insane. But anyway, this is from the General. Breaking: one of the fathers given adoptive rights to a baby, Brandon Keith Riley Mitchell, has been revealed as a registered sex offender. A Tier 1 sex offender, which sounds like the worst kind. Let's see what this is. It's probably a massive cringe fest.
Wish I'd never grown up. I could still be little.
All right, whatever. No, I don't want to make a freaking full screen. No, we already had enough of that nonsense. That poor baby, man. But Rep Luna, she's making that apparent. I mean, they're not in her district. I'm in her district. I'm in St. Pete. So at least she's making the AG aware of it. I mean, that's a good thing. But anyway. So Rep. Jason Crow, it's been 5 days since Republicans shut down Congress to stop the release of the Epstein files. So basically, we're just going to get the same post over and over again. It's been 6 days. It's been 7 days, 8 days, 9 days. And that's what Democrats keep talking about. They don't want us to be paying attention to what Tulsi Gabbard released over the last couple of weeks. They want us paying attention to what doesn't really, I mean, it does matter. And I really do want them to get to the bottom of this whole Epstein files thing, which I don't think there are any files anymore because I think the Biden administration destroyed them all. But as far as having a way between the two, definitely the Trump collusion hoax with Obama and James Clapper and James Comey and all of them, that is definitely something that really should not be swept under the rug. And I'm sure Democrats would love nothing more than to do exactly that. So anyway, from Rep. Nacy Mace, these procedures on kids should have never been allowed. And this is in response. Actually, I'll just go with this one first. So this comes from Libs of TikTok. Just in, one of the largest healthcare providers, Kaiser Permanente, announces it's ending sex change transition surgeries for minors in Oregon following Trump's executive orders. Let's watch this first.
In response to an executive order by President Trump, Kaiser Permanente will no longer provide gender-affirming surgeries to patients under 19 years old. Earlier this year, President Trump issued an executive order restricting access to gender-affirming care for people under 19. The new policy at Kaiser Permanente will begin August 29th. All other
shouldn't it be under 25 years old since the progressives
gender-affirming care.
Since progressives and a lot of younger women, they like to make that argument that your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. So I mean, and then you can insert whatever political messaging after that. Maybe it should be under 25 years old because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed
will
yet.
Continue to be available. So far, no other organ-based providers have made such changes. Point 6 reached out to other organ healthcare providers to see if they were considering the same move. OHSU maintained that they will continue offering gender-affirming care that's evidence-based and follows an established process. Legacy Health would not say if they would change practices.
All right. Yeah, one of those arguments that I thought of offhand that a lot of women like to point at as far as the prefrontal cortex hasn't developed yet. If older men look into dating younger women, like a man who's like 35 years old or 40 years old, and he wants to date a woman who's like 21 or maybe 22 years old, that's a common argument. Her prefrontal cortex isn't even developed yet. She's just so immature still. She's not fully matured yet. He's just creepy for doing that. That's like pedo vibes, even though it's not, because she's a fucking adult, which is hilarious. You know, a lot of older guys, they like to date younger women, not only because they're a lot more beautiful, but because that's the perfect age to start a family. Not when you're 35, when you're right near the end of your ability and you're entering, what is that, geriatric pregnancy. But anyway, I don't want to get all hung up on that nonsense. But anyway, so from Rep. Nancy Mace, these procedures on kids should have never been allowed. This is why we introduced the Childhood Genital Mutilation Prevention Act to protect children from harmful, life-changing surgeries. Common sense is finally catching up. Finally. This is from Tammy Bruce. The United States opposes the French government's release and expulsion to Lebanon of convicted terrorist Jorge Ibrahim Abdallah. His release threatens the safety of U.S. diplomats abroad and is a grave injustice to the victims and the families of those killed. The United States will continue to support the pursuit of justice in this matter. So he is a convicted terrorist, and they're sending him off to Lebanon. Let me just take a quick look and see if we can find anything out about this dude, because I've never heard of this guy before. So I don't know what he's all about. Let's see. Oh, he's old. He's really old. He's a Lebanese former militant and founder of, well, of course, Wikipedia. If he's any kind of activist or whatever, of course they're going to dress it up in the most positive way possible, but maybe not. He's a Lebanese former militant and founder of the Lebanese Armed Revolutionary Factions. He was convicted of terrorism and served 41 years of a life sentence at Lannemezan prison, France, for complicity in the 1982 assassination of Charles R. Ray and Yakov Bar Semenetov, and was released in July of 2025. Let's see. A French court ordered to release him on December 6th of 2024 on the condition that he would leave France. The state prosecution appealed against the order. When was this dude born? Okay, so he's 74 years old. I mean, he still could be relevant in the terrorism community. I mean, they definitely have something to be worried about. However, it sounds like he served his time. He served 41 of a life sentence. Okay, so maybe he didn't serve all of his time because he ain't dead yet. I see why they're a little concerned about that. Why Tammy Bruce is a bit concerned, or the State Department, I should say. All right, so anyway, let me get rid of that. All right. From the U.S. Census Bureau, the quarter two 2025 home ownership rate of 65% was not statistically different from the rate in the second quarter of 2024, which was 65.6%. I mean, that looks different to me. Looks like it fell 0.6%. The Q2 2025 rental vacay rate of 7% was higher than the rate in the second quarter of 2024, 6.6%. So, I mean, it's just about the same rate in both, if you ask me. But, yeah, anyway. So this is on census.gov, and it's showing the graph here. Residential vacancies and home ownership for the second quarter of 2025. See, looking at it historically, rental vacancy rate steadily going down from 2009 all the way to probably, 2022-ish. And then it started climbing back up again. Same with homeowner vacancy rate. Then it's starting to creep up a little bit. Of course, the illegal immigration situation kind of makes a problem out of that, as far as people trying to get some relief in mortgages and rents and what have you. All right, so Senate Republicans, Roy Cooper is running. Literally, he runs away when asked why he supports men competing in girls' sports.
Really? Governor Cooper? Yeah. Why do you support men being able to play women's sports?
Can you let me in, please? I'm Roy.
Governor Cooper, why do you support men being able to play women's sports?
He's not going to answer. What an asshole.
Governor Cooper, could you please answer the question? Governor Cooper, are there more than two genders?
Of course, he's not going to answer that because he is a propagandist. Obviously. I mean, if you truly believed it, why can't you give him 30 seconds of your time and just tell him straight up? If you're passionately in favor of it, you shouldn't have any problem telling him why. But yeah, he's just another propagandist. But anyway, so from the GOP, the president of peace. So Donald J. Trump, his Truth Social account, just spoke to the acting Prime Minister of Thailand and Prime Minister of Cambodia. I am pleased to announce that after the involvement of President Donald J. Trump, both countries have reached a ceasefire and peace. Congratulations to all. By ending this war, we have saved thousands of lives. I have instructed my trade team to restart negotiations on trade. I have now ended many wars in just 6 months. I am proud to be the president of peace. Yep, he is absolutely prolonging World War III. That's for damn sure. So, Homeland Security. Across the country, ICE agents are targeting the worst of the worst and taking them off American streets. Violent thugs ICE arrested include child pedophiles, drug traffickers, and burglars. Secretary Noem stands with ICE agents who put themselves in harm's way to protect the American people from violent, criminal, illegal aliens.
It's good to be with you. Immigration and Customs Enforcement announcing they have been going after some of the worst of the worst and giving us a real quick snapshot of yesterday's operations, literally from North Carolina all the way to California. When you read across some of the violations of what these people who are illegally in the country, the offenses they have committed against some of our fellow citizens, guys, it really makes you understand why ICE is doing what
Places
they're doing.
like New York,
why
they
it's
just let them
important to
out
get the
after they
story
commit
out here.
those
Because what are we always
atrocities.
told as Americans? That those who cross that southern border, only violation they commit is illegally entering the country. Well, when you read some of these violations, you say to yourself, well, obviously that's not the case.
So what? That's still criminal.
Look, first-degree rape, first-degree sexual offense of a child, one individual out of North Carolina, another one for indecency with a child, one out of Utah, as you see here, arrested for robbery and trafficking of methamphetamine. And look, I can go on with these offenses. But when you talk about the sexual assaults, we have to remember something here. That's directly impacting someone in our country. And when you say first-degree rape, well, what does that even mean? Let me tell you what that means. That means they either used a weapon during the commission of the offense of that crime, they used extreme violence toward the victim while they committed that crime, or it was a child, guys. These are the kind of people that ICE is out there chasing every day. One last thing I just want to say to this as you're looking at some of these individuals is this. This is exactly why President Trump and Border Czar Tom Homan are directly saying that the quickest way to public safety to protect our citizens is through mass deportation. And that's exactly why they're going after these individuals and getting them picked up. Back to you.
Certainly the worst of the worst, some of these people. You can't not even believe the charges that they are up against. Jason Jones, we appreciate you coming on.
But what I mean about the whole fraud thing is that a lot of these immigrants will reach the border and then they will attempt to seek asylum and they'll repeat what the activists on the southern side of the border, on the Mexican side of the border, told them to say. And these activists are Americans, of course, and they go down there and they tell them, all right, this is exactly what you tell border security, that you're seeking asylum because A, B, and C, and they just know exactly what to say because they're told what to say, even though they're not here seeking asylum. They're just here seeking a way to just earn more money. That's it. Not every single one of them, but most of them. Plus, you can't seek asylum unless you're in Mexico or you're from Mexico. And even if you're from Mexico, maybe, just maybe, the government might allow you asylum if you're being directly targeted by like a cartel or something. But Mexico's not a war-torn country. So any country that is south of Mexico, all of those citizens, if they're legitimately trying to claim asylum, they have to do so in Mexico. They can't skip over Mexico and come to the U.S. It doesn't work that way. But, of course, Democrats, they made it so, even though it doesn't work that way, but they didn't care. They did it anyway. All right, so Secretary Kennedy, thank you, Idaho, Governor Little, for your bold leadership. From banning cell phones in classrooms to eliminating sugary drinks and candy from SNAP, your state is taking decisive action to protect kids' health and tackle the chronic disease crisis head on. Oh, and it's a video. I thought it was just an image. Yeah, we'll check out this video here.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS secretary, and I'm here with Governor Brad Little in Boise, Idaho, and we're here to sign a proclamation of Keep Idaho Healthy. They were among the first states in the country to pass legislation restricting cell phone use in schools and also filing for a SNAP waiver for candies and sodas. And all of these happened thanks to his leadership.
It's a great honor to have you here. We're very independent, but we also want people to be healthy. We recognize the crisis that exists at the national level and at the state level. So it's incumbent that we partner with the federal government to make sure that all the programs that are there increase the health of the entire population.
I want to thank you very much for your leadership, Governor Little, and let's go forward from here.
We will do it.
There you have it. All right. Well, that's another state down. We got to get sugary drinks off of all SNAP benefits. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, for a time when I was little, my parents were on food stamps for what, maybe a year. I don't know. I was too young to really even pay that much attention. But I know for a fact back then, you couldn't get candy bars and bags of chips and Mountain Dew. You couldn't get any of that with food stamps. No, not at all. Believe me, I asked. And nope, you couldn't get it back then. All right, so Vice President J.D. Vance thanking the steelworkers at Metallus for their hard work after his remarks in Canton, Ohio. Check this out. This is quick. Oh my gosh, that's loud. Oh my God. My apologies. Shaking hands, meet and greet. The steelworkers. Canton, Ohio. I used to live in Canton, Ohio, actually, when I was 5 years old. My grandparents lived there for a while. Yeah, I lived there for like 3 months or 4 months. back when I was really little. All right, let me make this a little bit bigger. So, U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, now is the time to prepare. Make sure you have flashlights with fresh batteries. If you own a portable generator, get out of the way. Make sure you have working carbon monoxide alarms on every level of your home. Absolutely. And that's regarding the Atlantic hurricane season. And there's the graph where it shows the peak time where we typically get hurricanes and tropical storms is between September, well, actually really between August and November 1st, really. But yeah, it gets bad in the middle of September. That's pretty risky. But from my side of the state, I live on the west coast of Florida, and it's usually between, I'd say, maybe mid-September to mid-October. But really, the whole month of October is when we're the most vulnerable because we get cold fronts coming down from up north, which, if any storms are in the Gulf, cold fronts tend to steer them toward the west coast whenever a cold front's heading down, and there just happens to be a storm there. So, yeah, it's definitely not my favorite month of the year, that's for sure. But anyway, on average, 86% of all named tropical systems in the Atlantic occur after August 2nd, and the first hurricane doesn't form until August 11th. We have a long season to go. Prepare now and learn more about how at weather.gov. So on and so forth. Let's see, I'll bring this open so I can put it in my description. Every tab I open, every article I open, I drop everything in the description. So if you want to read more on that. I mean, if you live in a hurricane-prone area, this is just every hurricane season. I mean, you're already probably prepared. You probably got prepared back in May. I mean, that's when I inventory everything, make sure we have everything. We went through Hurricane Helene last year, which brought the worst storm surge that we saw here in Pinellas County in 80 years. So that was bad. And then we had Hurricane Milton just after that, like not even 2 weeks later, which brought 100-mile-an-hour winds to my house. So we had the winds from the second one, and we had the flooding from the first one. I mean, fortunately, I didn't have to deal with flooding, but yeah, still, we dipped into our hurricane supplies, to say the least, because we were without power for several days, and so I had to replenish some things and check our food stocks and all that, make sure we got plenty of water. So, all right, let's move on to the next thing. From USA Government News, breaking: President Trump calls out Europe's illegal immigration disaster right in front of the UK Prime Minister. No fear, no filter, just truth. Trump's policies work. Europe should start taking notes. Strong borders equals safe nations.
Europe is a much different place than it was just 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's much worse.
They've got to get their act together. If they don't, you're not going to have Europe anymore as you know it. And you can't do that. This is a magnificent part of the world, and you cannot ruin it. You cannot let people come in here illegally. And what happens is there'll be murderers, there'll be drug dealers, there'll be all sorts of things that other countries don't want. And they send them to you, and they send them to us, and you've got to stop them. And I hear
neither one of them do, frankly.
You've taken a very strong stand on immigration.
Yeah, I guess. That was a very uncomfortable yeah. But yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, how many of them really came illegally? Really, they kind of opened up the floodgates, kind of like the Biden administration did here. So the whole asylum seekers and all that, it would not be a good time to be living in Europe, at least from what we're seeing over here on this side of the pond. All right, from Senate Republicans, this is false. And what is false? From Senator Mazie Hirono, in their nightmare budget bill. You see how they just keep ratcheting up this? It was the bad budget bill. Now it's the nightmare. The next one is going to be the apocalyptic budget bill. The next one's going to be the universe-ending budget bill, whatever the fuck. Let's see. In their nightmare budget bill, Republicans voted to raise grocery costs for 40 million Americans who receive SNAP benefits. So much for this America First agenda. Well, I know that they have to get at least a part-time job. You got to work at least 20 hours a week to qualify for SNAP benefits. I believe that probably pertains to childless adults, but I could be wrong on that. I don't know the nitty-gritty details on that. I just know that they're making large cuts to SNAP benefits, and the majority of America absolutely agrees with it because everybody knows at least one person, at least most of us do. Most of us know at least one person, either who's in our family or somewhere in our social circle, who's been on some form of government benefits for years and years and years. For probably an entire generation in many cases. So, yeah, a lot of people are pretty happy to see this getting done finally. This is false, though. The OBBB protects and preserves SNAP and Medicaid for Americans who need it. Senator Hirono voted to keep over 1 million illegal immigrants on taxpayer-funded Medicaid. Yeah, that's one thing that they're trying to say. So many Americans are going to lose their health care. The Trump administration is just, they're gutting the Medicaid and Medicare system, maybe for illegals, which is what the vast majority of America agrees with. So from ATF San Francisco, ATF special agents are on scene in Reno, Nevada, where multiple people have been injured in a mass shooting earlier this morning. This was only 4 hours ago. ATF is providing investigative support and working closely with local law enforcement. I remember seeing this, so I bookmarked it, but I didn't see it. They didn't link an article or anything, and honestly, I didn't hear a peep about this today. So I'm going to look that up real quick and just see what it is that actually happened. Hopefully nothing too catastrophic. Whoops. I mean, it was a shooting, right? Reno, Nevada shooting. Let's see here. Shooting at Nevada Casino Resort. Oh, no. 3 people died. Let's see. Shooting at Nevada Casino Resort leaves at least 3 dead, multiple people injured, and a suspect is in custody. Good. He didn't control and delete himself, and also he didn't get away, so that's good. Police engaged in a shootout with suspect at Grand Sierra Resort in Reno before taking him into custody. Holy shit. At least 3 people were killed and 3 others were injured when a gunman appeared to randomly open fire on a group outside a casino in Reno, Nevada, and a motorist, authorities said. Reno police responded to an active shooter report at Grand Sierra Resort around 7:25 a.m. local time. God dang, dude. Way too early to be doing this shit. Local time, actually, any time is no time to be doing this shit, frankly. And you know what? If more people were armed, then maybe a couple of extra lives would have been saved. Hopefully, possibly, potentially. So anyway, the department told Fox News Digital the unidentified gunman was seen walking into the parking lot of the casino where he approached the valet area. Chris Crawford, the chief of the Sparks Police Department, which is leading the investigation into the shooting, said during a Monday news conference. And there's a look at the casino. We could see past all the recommended videos. There you are. I've never been to Reno, so... Anyway, upon reaching the valet area, the suspect pointed a handgun at a group of people. The gun initially malfunctioned before the gunman was able to fire. Wow. Crawford said 1 person was pronounced dead at the scene. 4 others were taken to a hospital where a second victim was pronounced dead. After firing on the group, the gunman fled and was confronted by a casino security guard who opened fire. Good. The suspect continued to flee before fatally shooting another person driving through the parking lot, police said. Within 2.5 minutes of reports of the shooting, authorities said officers located the suspect and a shootout occurred. The suspected gunman was taken to a hospital where he remains in critical condition. Uh-oh. Well, hopefully he'll face justice, but in total 6 people were shot. So 2 were listed in critical condition of the 3 who survived, and 1 was released from the hospital, so... That's good. At least 1 didn't sustain injuries that were too life-threatening. But yeah, just absolutely wild. That happened today. So from the White House, yes, here we go again. No one defends criminal illegal aliens quite like Democrats. So you are here right now. Democrats swoop in with tears to defend criminals. Then ICE provides proof of why aliens were arrested. Then American communities become increasingly safe. Then criminal illegal aliens get nabbed by ICE. And then Democrats swoop in with tears to defend criminals. All right. This, I'm assuming, is probably going to be a long one. Oh, never mind. It's just an image. Members of Maryland's congressional delegation aren't being let in to tour Baltimore ICE detention facility. It looks like a sit-in. Well, I'm sure they have a pretty good reason. Maryland's congressional delegation. I don't know. Congress members, I'm sure they're allowed to tour government buildings, aren't they? They probably need to get a heads up or something so they can at least make sure that all the criminals are locked up and put wherever it is that they need to be put to make the place safe enough for members of Congress to walk through and quote-unquote inspect the place. But we all know why they're really there. They're there to try to see if there's anything at all that they can use to smear them as much as possible. They really have no business being there other than just trying to find just one thing, just at least one thing that they could use kids in cages or some stupid shit like that. So from Homeland Security to every criminal illegal alien in America, darkness is no longer your ally. You represent an existential threat to the citizens of the United States, and U.S. Border Patrol's Special Operations Group will stop at nothing to hunt you down. Check this out. It's a little short clip here. It's quiet. Yeah, I got it maxed out.
They think I'm hiding in the shadows. But I am the shadows.
Wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 1. That got very loud. All right, there you have it. Fighting the good fight. So, Senate Republicans, Democrats, why is our approval rating at 19%? Also Democrats, ... From the Daily Caller. Cringe, 79-year-old Democrat Senator Ed Markey attempts a TikTok trend. Uh-oh. Now, this is probably going to be an elite-level cringe fest. Oh, my God, this dude's so old. Why the hell are you on TikTok, dude? It's only 17 seconds. Oh, fuck. It was so stupid and pointless. And you know what? If it was funny, I would admit that it was funny, but it wasn't. It wasn't funny at all. All right. Moving along to Homeland Security. Homicides down 17% across 30 U.S. cities under President Trump and Secretary Noem. The rapid arrests and deportations of criminal illegal aliens are having real impact on public safety. Check out these stats. Don't mind if I do. During the first 6 months of 2025, homicides fell 17% across 30 U.S. cities when compared with the first half of 2024, according to the Council on Criminal Justice, an independent research organization which has just published its mid-year report on crime trends in U.S. cities. In the first 6 months of 2025, there were 10% fewer reported aggravated assaults, 21% fewer gun assaults, 10% fewer sexual assaults, and 3% more domestic violence incidents when compared to the time last year, according to the report. And finally, robberies are also down 20% and carjacking fell by 24%. Vehicle theft was rising from the summer of 2020 through 2023, according to the Council on Criminal Justice, but the trend began reversing in 2024. Hell yeah. Stats that everybody's got to love. All right, Secretary Chris Wright, this is what you call the art of the deal. President Trump has secured a historic trade deal, which we did cover earlier, with the EU that includes purchasing $750 billion in American energy. So that's always, can't be reminded enough that he's making all these insane deals. All these deals put together, how many trillions of dollars do you think it's up to now? It's got to be several trillion by now for all the trade deals. Plus, how many countries are we up to now with the tariff trade deals? Isn't it like 90? Honestly, with the EU now, it's probably what, at 110, 120 maybe. It's got to be way up there. I think it was something like 90 countries before the EU deal was struck. Plus, there was the other two. What was it? Cambodia and what was the other country? Vietnam. Oh, I'm drawing a blank right now. I don't think maybe it was Vietnam. I don't remember. But anyway, yeah, they just signed trade deals too. So that's another two added to the list. So from DoD Rapid Response, we're righting the wrongs of the previous administration and ending their far left assault on faith and tradition in our military. This is from the Secretary of the Army. Today, West Point USMA signed a contract for 1,800 new Bibles, this time with the Academy crest for the Cadet Chapel. This restores an important symbol to a sacred place on a hallowed installation. Is that it? Oh, yeah. So that is amazing. That is awesome news. Let's give this a click. So the decision to remove West Point crest from chapel Bibles was reversed by the Secretary of the Army. The decision came amid a lawsuit filed against the Pentagon for records concerning the crest removal from the Bibles. Let's go, man. Shout out to all you fellow Christians out there. If I can freaking get this thing. Here we go. The Secretary of the Army has ordered the U.S. Military Academy at West Point to restore the school's crest on Bibles at the West Point Cadet Chapel, reversing a Biden-era decision to not include the crest when replacing the Bibles. Wasn't Biden supposed to be some devout Catholic? Am I wrong there? Or was I in just some alternate reality for 4 years? Anyway, since the founding of West Point and before, generations of cadets, officers, and soldiers have drawn strength and inspiration from God's Word. Actually, the reason why they removed the crest during the Biden administration is because Biden wasn't actually the president then. He wasn't in charge. And this is just another example as to how you can just point to something and say, look, Biden wasn't in charge. He wasn't cognitively there, because if he was, and if he really was a devout Catholic, or even a Christian in general, you really think that he would sign off on that? Because it makes absolutely no sense. Why would you have just removed the crest? It's such a stupid thing to get triggered over. It's just ridiculous. They're just trying to undo traditionalism in any conceivable way that they can possibly do it, which is why they were toppling over statues and all that, which I haven't heard anything about restoring the statues that the left had been knocking down for the last, 7 to 9 years or however long it was. Anyway, the decision to remove the Academy's historic crest from the Bibles in the Cadet Chapel is yet another example of the previous administration pushing far-left policies into our military institutions. I am directing West Point to reverse this decision immediately and restore this important symbol of duty, honor, and country. That is awesome. The class of 2026 unveiled its crest during plebe parent weekend in March of 2023. Can you tell I wasn't in the military? I tried, but they wouldn't let me because I'm half deaf. I can't hear my left ear. I wish I could. Surround sound would be dope. I haven't heard any surround sound since I saw the movie Twister. It was in surround sound. It was like right around when surround sound was first coming out. I saw that in surround sound, and I think it was like 4 years after that. That's when I lost my hearing. I lost it to an injury, and now I can't use my left ear for anything. It sucks. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Here from USCIS, we encourage all aliens in the U.S. illegally to self-deport using the DHS Gov and CBP Home app. Now, I did mention this earlier, the whole $1,000 thing. Through the app, you'll receive a complimentary plane ticket home for free, courtesy of the U.S. taxpayer, a $1,000 exit bonus upon your return home. So once you get home, they'll drop $1,000 in your pocket. And any unpaid fines for failing to depart previously will be forgiven. Learn more at uscis.gov. That one I don't think I have to link in the description because we probably don't have criminal illegals that are listening to this specifically. So let's say, I know I've heard numbers. I've heard 15 million are here illegally. I've heard 30. I've heard 50. I'm just going to take 20. I don't know if that's going to be really all that accurate, but let's say that 20 million. And then let's say that they all took advantage of this $1,000 thing. That is $20 billion. And that doesn't even include the plane tickets, which is probably going to be another probably $8 billion. So we're talking like $28 billion worth of tax money. Now, if you divided that up amongst every single American man, woman, and child, including the people who don't pay taxes, minors, and the whole 9 yards, that's going to be like, what, about 343 million Americans? So that's about $81. So Biden letting the floodgates open and all these illegals pouring into our country just to try to get the ones to self-deport, and I know 20 million is a really high number, that would cost $81 for each and every American man, woman, and child. That's how much each and every one of us ends up having to pay in the form of taxes to get rid of everybody who snuck into our country and they have no business being here. So anyway, Senator Pete Ricketts, the highest percentage of tax cuts in the OBBB, the one big beautiful bill, goes to people making less than $50,000 a year. Police officers, nurses. Nurses, dude, I don't know if you're out of touch or not, but nurses make a hell of a lot more than $50,000 a year. And in fact, police officers probably do too. Factory workers, I mean, I know a lot of them do, but I'm sure there's a lot who don't. And servers, a lot of them don't make $50,000. But a lot of them do, though, to be fair. There are some that actually make six figures, believe it or not. Anyway, police officers, nurses, factory workers, and servers who make money on tips or overtime will be the biggest benefactors. Just last week, I was flying from Nebraska when a TSA officer stopped me to thank me for no tax on overtime pay. That is nice. That is very nice. He even asked if we could make it permanent. Yeah, hopefully, at some point. But the tax savings on overtime isn't just for the TSA. It's for all of the jobs that keep Nebraska and this country safe and running. This tax cut is for all jobs that sometimes require workers to give a little more, work a little harder, and rewarding their sacrifice. Dude, just that alone. Because there's a lot of jobs out there, especially in law enforcement and even federal law enforcement. Now that they're rounding up all of the illegal immigrants, there's going to be probably endless offerings for overtime for quite a while. But if you're in any job where you're working overtime and you're getting just that much more back on it, hell yeah, that would incentivize you to work harder and work stronger and faster and more effective. I mean, I would. Anytime I'm offered overtime, I'm sure as hell going to take it. It might only amount to like an extra $1 an hour, an extra $2 an hour, but dude, even in the face of inflation, even still, $1 is $1. But anyway, the peace president keeps delivering from House Republicans, and they are responding to rapid response with regard to the ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand. Oh, it's Thailand. It wasn't Vietnam. It was Thailand. What the fuck am I talking about? It's peace. That was going to be a very bad war. That could have gone on for years. Millions of people could have been killed. We ended the war, and we're very happy about it. I mean, what is going on between Thailand and Cambodia? I'm not well versed in either of them. I know where they are. I know where those countries are, but I don't know. Let's see what that's all about. I don't know if this is going to return anything. Maybe. The recent conflict between Thailand and Cambodia stems from a long-standing border. Let's see. A long-standing border dispute primarily concerning ancient temple sites like Priya, Vihir, and exacerbated by nationalist sentiments and political instability. While both sides have agreed to a ceasefire, the history of conflict is rooted in colonial-era border demarcations and ongoing territorial claims. So it's similar to what happens with a lot of wars in Africa. They basically just drew border lines where border lines didn't exist previous to that, and you get tribes warring against other tribes because, you know, they screwed it all up. However many countries are in Africa, like what, 60 or 55, 60, 65, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's somewhere around there. Before the whole colonialism thing and then drawing border lines all over the continent, I mean, there were thousands of tribes, I'm sure. So that tends to create problems when you draw a border line and you put two different tribes who historically haven't gotten along, you put them into the same area, and they're like, no, we own this. No, we own this. Then you get problems. So it sounds like Thailand and Cambodia, somewhat similar to that border dispute. So, I mean, yeah, it's one of the primary things that countries go to war over. Land is resources. And money and power and everything else. So from Homeland Security, the Trump administration is taking action to protect children in just 6 months. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, arrested 214 illegal alien child sex offenders in the Houston area alone. That's just in Houston. This total is more than the Houston field office arrested during the entire fiscal year of 2024. Damn, dude. That is freaking crazy. Here are a few of the sickos arrested by ERO Houston. Shall we check them out? They're going to show their pictures, too. Let's see what these fuckers look like. Evil fuckers. So, Jesus Gutierrez Morales is 67-year-old. He's been deported 3 times. This asshole's been deported 3 times already. But when you're deported from or by the federal government and then you re-enter the country, I thought that came with mandatory prison time. That's what I thought. I mean, maybe he did serve prison time for it. But anyway, he's from Mexico. He was arrested March 28th, and he's been convicted of aggravated sexual assault of a child and driving while intoxicated. Next one, Jorge Zebra, a 48-year-old from Mexico, arrested March 21st, convicted of 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a minor and sexual indecency with a minor. And another one, Manuel Antonio Castro Juarez, a 37-year-old. Of course, he was deported twice from El Salvador, arrested July 18th, and was convicted of sexual assault on a minor and twice for illegal re-entry. Still in ICE custody, pending his third removal. Jose Guadalupe Meza, 40-year-old. He's been deported 4 fucking times. This asshole has snuck in here, 5 times? Arrested June 24th, convicted of theft and sexual assault of a child. And he was removed June 25th. How many more are there? I think there's only one more. Sergio Rolando Galvin Guerrero, 45-year-old, deported 3 times from Mexico, arrested July 12th, convicted of DWI and aggravated sexual assault of a child. And he was removed back to Mexico on July 14th. So, one comment. Thank you, ICE. Everyone, please call your representatives and ask them to get on board with protecting the children and supporting ICE. That's actually a pretty good idea. Yep, you can email them. You can give them a call. You know, your local Congress member, they're supposed to be reading every email. So if you actually send them an email, they're supposed to be actually putting their eyes on your email. I know they have a whole staff, and I'm sure they do actually weed out the less pertinent ones with the more pertinent ones. But yeah, write your Congress member. Especially if something's happening that affects you directly. I mean, that's what they're there for. They're there to serve you. All right. I think we're getting close to the end here. United States Trade Representative. Yeah, here we go. All right. The European Union has historically imposed higher tariff and non-tariff barriers on American exporters, leading to a large trade deficit. The President of the United States is rebalancing the trade relationship between the 2 largest market economies in the world, which is deepening our strategic partnership and improving Americans' market access. So, let me see, where the hell did I put it? All right. Only 37 seconds. Let's give this a listen.
The EU is the largest destination for our exports. They send an enormous amount of exports to the United States. We have had an enormous trade deficit with the EU for a very long time, and a lot of that has been because the EU has historically had higher tariffs and non-tariff barriers on the United States.
Yep,
and this deal changes that. It is a structural change in the U.S.-EU trade relationship in favor of rebalancing. So the United States is going to have an opportunity to finally have improved market access. The EU acknowledges that, the legitimacy of the U.S. complaints, and we're going to be able to move forward on a much stronger footing with the EU and our trade relationship.
Hell yeah, man, let's go. Huge deal, huge deal. Hopefully that holds up for years to come. I would love to hear why Democrats would want to reverse that. Let's say if they were to get back into power. I mean, it's kind of naive, or yeah, it's a bit naive to believe that a Democrat will never be president ever again. You know what I mean? I mean, let's hope not. That would be nice. But it wouldn't surprise me if they reversed that in some way, shape, or form, just because, well, Trump did it. Anything that Trump did, we have to undo, which would be detrimental. Absolutely a catastrophe and brutally fucking insane if they were to do that. Not just with Europe, but everything that Trump's been doing. Bureau of Transportation Statistics. Oh, that's too big. All right. BTS data release. North American transborder freight decreased 4.9% in May of 2025 from May of 2024. I know it's kind of boring, but it's news. May, let's see, total transborder freight was $132.1 billion, which is down almost 5%. Between the U.S. and Canada, $57.6 billion, down 12%. Between the U.S. and Mexico, $74.5 billion, which is up 2.1%. Trucks, $86.7 billion. Still down 4.6%. Railways, $16 billion, down 13%. Pipelines, $8.3 billion, negative 13.2%. Vessels, $8 billion even, negative 18.6%. And air, $4.6 billion, which is up 4.4%. North American transporter freight, May of 2025, in total, $132.1 billion, although it's going down. All right, so this is from the Air Force. A glimpse into the future. The F-15EX touched down at Kadena Air Base, giving a first look at how we are Okay, they didn't really word that too well. Giving a first look at how we are modernizing air power in the region. All right, that is a badass-looking fighter jet. And they actually have a link to an article. I'll put it in the description. We don't have to go into detail about it. This is on Kadena Air Force Base's website, kadena.af.mil, and that's in Japan, by the way. And a significant milestone for U.S. air power modernization in the Indo-Pacific. 2 F-15EX Eagle II aircraft from the 85th Test and Evaluation Squadron in Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Hey, you're in Florida. Arrived at Kadena Air Base July 2nd, 2025 for integration and familiarization training with local units and joint partners. I believe I actually stayed on Eglin Air Force Base. My brother was stationed there for a little while. Actually, no, not a little while. I think he was there for like 2 years, actually. That's the one up in Destin, Fort Walton Beach, right? If I'm not mistaken. A buddy I went to high school with, Pete, he was stationed there. So back on July 4th weekend of 2006, I went up there and stayed up there for the whole weekend. It was a great time, man. It's awesome. The Emerald Coast. It's gorgeous up there. And that's where if I'm not mistaken, is it the Thunderbirds? Is that where the Thunderbirds are stationed? I think. I don't know. I could be wrong. No, maybe it's Blue Angels? Maybe it's the Blue Angels? I don't even know. I don't really know. My apologies. Correct me in the comments. Like, seriously. Correct me in the comments if you actually know. This overseas deployment of the F-15EX, the Air Force's most advanced iteration of the Eagle platform, offers a strategic preview of what lies ahead for forward-based air power in the region. The visit sets the stage for the permanent arrival of F-36, it sets the stage for the permanent arrival of 36 of them, of the F-15EX aircraft at Kadena in spring of 2026, part of a long-term transformation to maintain U.S. air dominance in a dynamic theater. So they've only got 2 there right now, but by this time next year, they should have 36 F-15EX aircraft. Yeah, sometimes military articles are kind of hard for me to read because they have tons of numbers and acronyms and all kinds of fun stuff. So I'll link that in the description. And finally, the last thing I have is U.S. Transcom. We continue to support U.S. Northern Command's Southern Border Mission in defense of the homeland. A flight landed carrying illegal aliens to Guantanamo Bay at 5:09 p.m. Eastern Time, and that was last night on Sunday. So they are flying illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. And that's all I got for you tonight. So if you like the video, please give me a subscription. Please subscribe to the channel, and also give the video a like if you are so inclined to do so. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back with another one tomorrow. And until then, have a great evening, and God bless America.